Thank you, Chair, and thank the witnesses for coming in. As my other colleagues have already spoken about the issues within the RTB, and I do believe we've covered most of that. Where I'm going to go straight into the questions are roughly the 15% that are leaving the market, the 10% that are leaving the market then from the point of view of returning the home to family homes, and also people that are returning back from abroad that want to take back, they had rented out their property while they were are returning home now to their homes, and they're looking to be resituated within their own homes, which is one concern that I have. A lot of concerns that I have from a rental point of view are within the county sector, within towns that have apartments. A lot of people that you touched on it there earlier about apartments was that a lot of people had bought apartments a number of years ago are now looking, saying that it's coming to its fruition, and that some of them are selling them. A lot of the reasons why a lot of them are selling them are because of refurbishment of the apartments that need to be refurbished, and especially if they're overhead a shop unit. Because anything that's touched in a shop unit, then you have to do the fire regulations, and you've got to, under the planning laws now, you've got actually to go story by story above a building. You've got certain fire regulations to cover, even within an old building. A lot of people had those apartments from years ago, see now that if they want to upgrade the property underneath, that they look it's not viable to do up the apartments, and a lot of them are leaving the market and selling the buildings because of that. And I see that from my own construction background myself. I can actually see that people are actually looking at it that way. So a lot of people then are leaving the market because they see them from the infrastructure within their own towns and villages, from a rental point of view, that people are not moving there because they can't build any new houses because of the infrastructure that's not there. And that hasn't been invested over years, and I'm talking large towns of population up to 4,000 and 5,000 people where the storage systems are at capacity. People are also seeing that there is no expansion of their town because of the facilities that are there, so they're looking then at the properties that they have, and they're saying they're not economical to refurbish. They're trying to get out now because they can see there's going to be less investments in the towns and in the villages where the rental properties are. And also within the one-off houses, the taxation system that people have within rent. If you're a limited company of 25% tax, if you're a sole trader, you're a 40% tax regime, and they look at what the tax regime is and the investment that they have and the return that they have. A lot of them are pulling out, and a lot of them are scared from what they actually see from people that want to get their properties back, the length of time it takes to get tenants out. And good tenants, there is a lot of good tenants there. There's a lot of fantastic tenants there. There's also a lot of fantastic landlords there. But we have a minority of tenants and landlords that shouldn't be in the system in the first place because of what they do. And a lot of people that have rental properties are scared because of that. So there's a scare factor as well why people are actually getting out. So from the point of view of the properties, and in your survey that you've done, how many of those properties were apartments that were bought in the older years that people looked at that they couldn't look at the investment because the inflation costs in construction, which is running around 30%. As I say, I'm in construction myself, and it fluctuates from week to week, depends on what email you get, from what supplier you get. And also the bankrolling of this, because an awful lot of the bankrolling of this now for materials, especially if they're one-off materials or specialist materials, is upfront payments that people are then looking that they have to pay up front before they even start the project. So how many, on the survey that you've done, how many of those properties were actually based on older properties that people are leaving the market because of that?
I don't, do you know, Karen? Not sure we have visibility on that.
In the previous survey, the full completed survey, the 2021 publication, we did have a quota that we hit, you know, in terms of actually making it representative to ensure that we had apartments, landlords and tenants that lived in apartments in that survey. I don't have that figure to hand, and we haven't completed the full analysis for this particular. These were the very preliminary results from the initial output of this survey, and again we applied that proportion in terms of making it representative for apartments. I'm not sure I fully got your question just in terms of actually the exit piece that we had. I think we do differentiate in that exit piece about landlords that were owners of apartments, and we haven't done the kind of cross tabulation, but it was, as Deputy Higgins did note, it is a small sample, you know, with the 100, but I'm sure we could kind of pull out those responses that were
I'll give you
apartments.
another question so then as well. On the survey that you completed, where was the survey based? Was it based on the size of a population within a certain area? Was it based on all of Ireland? Was it based within the different sectors within each individual counties? And when you've done the survey from the different counties, from the larger landlords, which would have been apartments, down to the person that would have 4 or 5 properties, down to the person that had 1 property, did it differentiate between county and county when you looked at the rental market and the rental rate? Did it show you a trend that was there from the point of a lack of infrastructure within the areas?
So we did, there was 130 sampling points across the country, and we did, in terms of the methodology, it is, nationally representative, and it does align to the CSO in terms of, some of their indexes as well. So it does reflect the proportion, across the country. In terms of the specifics that you're mentioning, in terms of I suppose the apartment piece, we didn't extract that specific, in that, but we do have it fully nationally representative to make sure that the results reflect the national kind of sample of rental properties and landlords and tenants in the sector, if that makes sense. Yeah. I can provide further information just in terms of that methodology.
What I mean, interesting known is that are people wanting to get into the rental market within, we'll just say Dublin, because they're getting a high market price? Then you go to Limerick where there's a certain market price, and you go to Clare, certain market price, and then they see the returns. And then as you go out of the cities, how many are dropping off within the county areas or within the town and village areas because of what they face with infrastructure and things like that? For that type of data would actually be very helpful for the committee as well. Because it then covers what they've actually said, housing for all, and not just a populated sector or a money-making sector where it's coming through a higher rental and a higher yield.
Yes, yeah.
And again, when they looked out for giving funding to people to build apartments, they were looking at giving funding to apartments, which was again going to the higher properties within the higher populated, such as Dublin and other areas. It didn't cover all of the country.
Yeah. And we do have those regional differences in the main study. The landlord exit study is much smaller, but there are those regional representations in the original study, and there will be regional commentary and analysis in this study, and we can pull out the 2021 outputs that I think will be relevant to you. And send them
I think the deputy makes a good point, because if you look at any property market or any market for rental, when you get down to difference in spatial issues within a city and issues around a country, which is quite diverse. We've got one big city and a couple of other smaller cities, and then we've got large country towns. The issues are very different in those, and it's only when you get details. This is one of the reasons why we're very happy to see annual registration, because with annual registration we should be able to start throwing off disaggregated details so we can examine what happens in a big market like Dublin and a smaller market elsewhere. And I would go so far as to say that the policy solutions need to be conscious of that, and that's a matter for here, this institution.
And it's one of the reasons I actually came on this committee, and it is a very interesting committee, the Housing Committee, because we all have different diverse from that add into this committee, which is very, very good. And for the committee probably listens to me talking about the rural areas and the lack of infrastructure. But I do believe what you have in information, it actually can show a full picture. And then when we are looking for making different legislations and regulations, that it will actually cover the whole country and work for everyone, rather than working for one sector, which usually people actually look at, and they look at the capital. So we want to spread out for the representation. And thank you for the giving me.
I'll just finish on that and say, as Niall said earlier on, the board doesn't really is neutral in policy. We're not there to devise the laws or to devise the policy. It's up to the discourse.
Have the information and
but our job is to provide the information to allow you to make the kind of cogent arguments that you need to make in order to supply your policy perspective. That's the job of the board.
Thank you for that.
Okay, thank you, Deputy.